Welcome to Epitrapaizoume. Hi, my name is Elia.
And mine Vangelis. And today's game under a microscope will be Autokrator, a new medieval Euro war game about the wars between Christians and Muslims in the past.
In Autokrator, players control one of the four major kingdoms of the medieval age.
The Franks against the Moors, the Byzantines against the Saracens, and each one of them against the other.
They strive to protect and expand their domination.
An era of epic battles, deep strategies and skillful negotiations. Man against man, sword against sword. Relive history, walk the paths of the generals, sail the routes of the admirals, cross your battle plans to become the new emperor, the one and truly Autokrator.
Autokrator is played by 2 to 4 players. A session takes approximately 90 minutes and it is suggested for ages 12 and up. Let's take a quick look on the components.
After opening the box, one gets astonished by the high quality of the components and the attention to detail. 2 thumbs up for Diacron Games. We get one game board with a medieval map of the Mediterranean, 54 battle cards, 4 wooden pawns for the kings, 4 wooden pawns for the generals, 4 wooden pawns for the admirals, 2 black wooden cylinders used as indicators, 60 octagons used as garrisons and indicators, and finally one rulebook in English.
Let's go and set up a game for 4 players and see how the game plays.
In Autokrator, the aim of the game is pure domination. The Franks, the Moors, the Saracens and the Byzantines fight each other to gain territories, and thus make their empire grow.
The game board is a medieval map divided into areas subject to players' control with their coats of arms and neutral areas without coats of arms. Keep in mind that Bulgaria, Armenia, Asturias and Hungary cannot be conquered by any player. Game setup. Each player receives the following: 12 battle cards, 1 wooden pawn as the king, 1 wooden pawn as the general, 1 wooden pawn as the admiral, 7 octagon pawns used as garrisons, 3 octagon pawns used as life indicators, 3 octagon pawns used as fighting point modifiers, and finally 2 octagon pawns used as score and treasury indicators.
Place the king and the general on your capital, and the admiral on any owned area with a harbor. Place the 3 life indicators in the maximum possible value on each military unit life track. That's the king, the general and the admiral. Finally, place the treasury indicator on the treasury square 11. Place the score indicators on the 0 space on the grading track. Last but not least, place the timeline indicator on the first space on the timeline track. At the beginning of each round, players should read the corresponding historical reference. Some factions gain an advantage that reflects what really happened in history.
The game lasts for 5 rounds. The players then allocate their battle cards to the military units and the round begins.
The order of play is the following. First go the Saracens, then the Byzantines, third go the Franks, and finally fourth go the Moors. Let's go and familiarize ourselves with the military units of the game. Each player has 3 military units to use on his turn in any order he wishes. For starters, we have the king. The king may perform 1 move and 1 attack in each round. He makes his move first and his attack afterwards. If the king makes his attack first, then he cannot move in the current round. The king can move to all adjacent mainland and coastal areas. For example, if the Saracen king is in Alexandria, in our example, he can move in the following areas. He can go to Cyprus, Creta, Cyrenaica, Katara, Fustat, and Jerusalem. All these are allowed.
The king may attack enemy and neutral areas as well as enemy military units in the same area. If the king loses a battle, he must retreat to any adjacent owned area he wants and lose one of his 3 lives. If the king loses a battle and the area which he lost doesn't border with any owned area, then he must retreat to his capital.
The second unit a player can use and has at his disposal is a general. The general may perform one of the following. He can either make one move and one attack each round, where he makes his move first and then he attacks afterwards, but if he decides to attack first, then he cannot move for the current round, or he can make 2 movements each round, but only between 2 owned areas. The general can move to all adjacent and mainland coastal areas like the king.
If the general loses a battle, he must retreat to any adjacent owned area that he wants, like the king, and lose one of his 4 lives marked with the appropriate life indicator pawn. If the general loses a battle and the area which he lost doesn't border with any owned area, then he must retreat to his capital and lose 1 extra life.
The next unit that is available for players in the game is the Admiral. The Admiral may perform 1 move and 1 attack each round. He makes his move first and his attack afterwards. If the Admiral makes his attack first, then he cannot move in the current round, more or less like the general or the king. The Admiral can move only between harbors of the appropriate color. Harbors are depicted on the map with colored anchors. The Saracen and the Byzantine admirals can move only between harbors with the red anchors, whether the Moors and the Franks admirals can move only between harbors with the yellow anchors.
If the Admiral loses a battle, he must retreat to any owned area harbor he wants, and lose 1 of his 4 lives marked with the appropriate life indicator pawn. If the Admiral has no owned area harbor to retreat to, he is immediately removed from the game.
The last unit in the game is the Garrison. A player's garrison represents all areas that bear his coat of arms, and whenever a player conquers a neutral or an enemy area, he places 1 of his garrison pawns, the octagon pawns, to denote his occupation of the area. Garrisons do not attack and do not move, they are used only for defense. A garrison has only 1 life. If lost in battle, a garrison is put back into its player's supply and the player loses possession of his defending area.
A few basic rules about movements. The general and the king of the same player cannot be together in the same area except their capital. For example, if the Byzantine king is on Atalia, then the Byzantine general cannot enter or pass through Atalia. If rival military units are in the same area, then there will be a battle between them. Also, if the general, the king or the admiral remained into an enemy area from the last round and there is only the garrison, then they cannot move and must fight with the garrison during the current round to conquer the area.
Let's see a quick example. The Byzantine's general is in Antiochia. He makes a move and attacks Cyprus, which is a neutral area. First he moves into Cyprus and then fights to conquer it. If he wins, then his pawn remains in Cyprus and he places a garrison, an octagon pawn, to show that he owns that area. If he loses the battle, then he loses 1 of his lives and he retreats into any owned adjacent area that he wishes. Let's see another example with movements and attacks. The Saracen's king is in Damascus. He makes a move and attacks Antiochia, which is an enemy area with a Byzantine general. First, he moves into Antiochia, and then he must fight with the Byzantine general. He cannot fight the garrison still. The Saracen's king wins the battle, and the Byzantine general retreats to Atalia. The Saracen's general is in Sidon. He makes a move and attacks Cyprus, which is an enemy area with a Byzantine king. First he moves into Cyprus, and then he must fight with the Byzantine king. He cannot fight the garrison still. The Saracen's general wins the battle, and the Byzantine king retreats to Antiochia, an area still owned by the Byzantine garrison. He cannot retreat to Atalia, because as we said before, there is a Byzantine general, and the general and the king cannot be in the same area except from their capital. The Byzantine king, on his turn, must fight with the Saracen king. He cannot move. Life indicators for the military units. Life indicators are placed in the maximum numeral positions on the military unit life track in the game setup. Every time a military unit loses a battle, move its corresponding life indicator one space to the right. If a military unit's life indicator reaches 0, the unit is out of the game. The small numbers in the bottom right area of the squares are the fighting point modifiers of the military units. As these units lose lives, they become more heroic and they fight stronger. We will see how we use them later on. What is unique about this game and makes it really shine is the battle system that is driven by the cards. A really nice and tight system that makes battles very interesting. Let's see the army administration and the battle cards. Each player receives 12 battle cards bearing his coat of arms during the game setup. The player must allocate the cards strategically in sets of 3 cards to his 4 military units. The 4 battle cards with the crown, the knight, the ship and the tower are always attached to the military units as shown below for the king, the general, the admiral and the garrison. Each player can change his battle cards before the beginning of a new round. Remember, we play the game in 5 rounds. A player must take caution when and how to allocate his cards. 2 or more of the same cards, armies, cannot be allocated to one military unit. For example, the king always has the cavalry card and cannot have another cavalry card in the 3 battle cards. We see in front of us a legal setup for players to divide their cards. Keep in mind, only the first card is shown in each unit and the rest, the other 2, are always hidden. They are revealed only in battle.
The deck of 6 neutral battle cards. These cards are used for the defense of the neutral areas and for the attacks raids of the neutral generals. The player representing the neutral area or the neutral general draws randomly 3 battle cards from the neutral deck for this battle. Then the battle proceeds using the normal rules.
Treasury. Every player has 11 gold coins to use as he wishes. Every time he spends a gold coin, then his indicator moves down 1. There are a lot of things to choose from, like espionage for 1 gold coin, the king's campaign for 3 gold coins, the general's campaign, the admiral's campaign. We have raids that cost 4 gold coins. Also you can do truce or even negotiations to spend different amount of gold coins. The players are free to negotiate their gold coins each other. For example, when the Moors play, the Byzantines can give an amount of gold coins from their treasury to Moor's treasury in order to attack an area of the Franks or to activate the neutral general. Gold makes a lot of difference in the game. It's pretty precious, and knowing when to spend it and which action to activate can make the whole difference, can tip the balance.
How to win victory points in the game. When a player conquers a neutral area, he wins 1 PP immediately to the grading scale.
When a player conquers an enemy area with 1 coat of arms, he wins 1 PP plus 1 gold coin to his treasury. When a player conquers an enemy area with a pawn, octagon, that's the garrison, he wins 1 VP plus 1 gold to his treasury.
When a player conquers an enemy area with 2 coats of arms, wins 2 VP immediately to the grading scale.
In each battle between rival military units, except the garrison, if the attacker wins, the defender player loses 1 VP immediately to the scale. Also, he loses 1 gold coin. If a player takes out of the game any opponent king, he wins 3 VP to the grading scale.
If a player takes out of the game any opponent's general, he wins 2 VP.
And finally, if a player takes out of the game any opponent admiral, he wins 1 VP. Additional victory points are awarded at the end of the game, that's the end of the 5th round. The players count their areas in order to see how many victory points they have won or lost. You can follow the instructions in the rulebook. Also, the players gain additional points regarding the gold coins from the treasury that are left from the campaigns. The more gold you have, the more victory points you will be awarded. Another important victory condition is that the game ends immediately before the end of the 5th round if a player conquers the enemy capital, any enemy capital. Therefore, the game promotes strategy and promotes attacks towards the capitals.
Who can call himself the Autokrator? The winner is the player who has the most victory points on the score track at the end of the 5th round.
So, to summarize, in the game we have 4 factions and the players must command almost 50,000 soldiers that are divided in 12 battle cards. That's the archers, the cavalry, the infantry, the mercenaries, and the catapults. These cards are also divided in different powers based on the army size and the training. So we have strong cards and weak cards, and the players must divide them wisely to their 4 military main units. That's the king, the admiral, the general, and the city's garrison. The main point of the game isn't to fight one battle after the other, but to fight successful and crucial battles with the military units that you have chosen to make them stronger using the appropriate battle cards, to know when to attack and to know when to negotiate.
The campaigns and the negotiations must be used wisely by the players in order to get the most out of their strategies. What we liked the most about the game was the fact that it has no random cards and dice, and even the historical events are described before the players' decisions regarding the army administration and distribution.
The choices of the players are based on calculations, and keep in mind that wrong decisions may cost you victory points. The game can also be played by 2 players, Saracens versus Byzantines or Franks versus Moors. The players, one by one in every round, must use one of their military units. They can choose which unit to use in any order they like. This rule can also be used in the 4 players game for more speed-up gameplay.
As we mentioned before, what we really liked about this game was the battle system that is driven by cards.
Let's say in our example, the Byzantine Admiral invades Alexandria, where the Saracen general stands to defend it.
After examining the cards, the battle commences. The attacker must choose 2 of the 5 available battlefields where he wishes the battle to take place, based on his 3 battle cards.
The attacker must choose 2 of the 5 available battlefields where he wishes the battle to take place, based on his 3 battle cards. In our example, the Admiral of the Byzantines is the attacker. After consolidating his cards and checking where he has weaknesses and where he has strengths, he decides to go for the plains or the ambush. The defending player, that's the Saracen general, in our example, must now choose between the 2 areas selected by the attacker. His choices are either plain or ambush. The Saracen general checks his cards, checks his weaknesses and strengths, and decides to go for the ambush. He places the battle indicator pawn there.
The attacker first places his 3 battle cards face down, side by side, in any order he wishes. Also, he must place the extra positive or negative fighting point modifier indicators that his admiral has. After the attacker, the defender, that's a Saracen general, places his 3 battle cards in any order he wishes, side to side, face down, opposite to the cards of the attacker. Also, he must set up the extra positive or negative fighting point modifier indicators.
The battle is a fight between the opposite cards. The players reveal the cards on the ambush battlefield. What happens is we have 5 mini battles, if you want. We have those 3 battles, which give 3 points depending on the winner, and we also have the training of the soldiers against the total training of the enemies, which is the 4th, and finally for the 5th point we get the total amount of soldiers versus the total amount of soldiers of the enemy. That's the 5th point. Best out of 5 wins the battle. For the first combat, the cavalry 2 minus 1 for the modifier, that's 1, versus infantry 4. The Saracen general wins this combat. The second combat, the center one, archers 5 minus 1 for the modifier, that's 4, versus the archers, which is 5. The Saracen general wins this combat too. The third combat, infantry 4 versus mercenaries 2 minus 1, that's 1. The Byzantine admiral wins this combat. For each combat won, a player gains 1 point. The score is now 2-1 in favor for the Saracens. Military training swords and total number of armies is now taken under consideration. Regarding the military training, the Byzantine admiral has 4 swords on his cards against 2 of the Saracen general, giving a point to the Byzantine admiral, thus making the score 2-2. It's a draw so far. Regarding the number of the armies, the Byzantine admiral has an army of 30,000 in total on his cards against 12,000 on the Saracen general. That's giving a point to the Byzantine admiral and making the final score 3-1. In this example, the Byzantine admiral is a winner. In case of a draw, the attacker wins the battle. The Byzantine admiral's win was glorious. The Saracen general, wounded, must retreat to any adjacent owned area. Since the attack was successful, the defender, that's the Saracen general, must lose 1 life and 1 gold from the treasury. The horns of war will sound, and massive armies will march against each other. Many will win, and many will lose, but only a few will triumph. And among those few, only one will leave his mark in history. Only one can truly be called the Autokrator.
This is Autokrator.
We hope that you enjoyed this video. Till next time, you're watching
Επιτραπέζουμε.